Welcome to Coffee with the President. Coffee with the President is an audio version of the traditional letter from the ACHE chapter president. Now, here's your host, Kathy Zavaleta.
Hi, I'm Kathy Zavaleta. And yes, this is a true story. Here's how it started. Usually, I can read a situation. And this time I had an inkling that something was off, but I didn't know what it was. There were three of us. We were in the hospital boardroom. We were sitting at this massive, highly polished walnut table. The decor lent a certain heaviness to the discussion. And truthfully, I never really felt very comfortable in that room. But it's not why you think. The chairs around the table were so big that my feet barely touched the floor. And still, I remember feeling grateful for that awkward seating. At least no one would hear my nervous feet tapping the floor. The table seemed to offer a kind of protection from whatever was happening. My colleague and I were about to hear an external reviewer's report on a very sensitive issue he had been reviewing. The stakes for our organization were high. So I centered myself so that I could be completely present. I reminded myself of how relieved I would feel to have a positive review. And then something completely unexpected happened. The man on the other side of the table leaned forward. He said he wanted to thank us for the care that had been provided to a family member during a recent hospitalization. He reached into his suit jacket. It seems, he said, there is some controversy about the bill. And then he placed a piece of paper on that big, heavy table. My colleague, in an instant, picked up that envelope and tucked it away. Wow. While most of us are aware of the day-to-day situations that come up in clinical and patient care settings, incidents like this one seem shocking. More frequently than I would like to admit, leaders are faced with ethical decisions in their day-to-day work. I don't think the pandemic will make it easier. The kinds of issues that arise represent a broad spectrum of situations. I have many examples from my own career. So there was a time I got an urgent message from a close colleague that he needed to talk just as soon as possible. It turned out he had been ordered to change his work calendar, or the documentation about his work calendar, in advance of an upcoming audit of cost reports. Another time I found circumstantial evidence suggesting a kickback from a supplier. There was yet another incident involving a favorite boss. He flat out lied to the governing board, and it was a whopper. What all these experiences had in common was the abuse or potential for abuse of power. Sometimes it was clear what I needed to do, but not always. It can be challenging to work through this kind of situation. Fortunately, larger organizations have a compliance officer who can assist. Even so, I find that organizational lapses easily become personal dilemmas. Another time I remember losing sleep about how to present my findings from an investigation of a significant patient safety event. Because it was a very high-profile case, I had been asked to personally take on the review. I was told to be especially thorough about getting to root cause, and I was shocked by what I found. The new CEO had directly expedited installation of new equipment. He had also ordered that the safety checks could be bypassed. Complicating the situation, this chief was new to our organization. I did not yet, anyway, have a trusting relationship with them. Worse, they had a reputation for using what I'll call an aggressive brand of heads will roll accountability style. I felt pretty vulnerable. Fortunately, my ACHE relationships paid off in unexpected ways. I needed someone who could help me see objectively. So I talked with a trusted colleague from outside my organization I had worked with in ACHE. Even without knowing the details, my colleague and friend helped me think through the next steps. Then I sought help from a key influencer within my organization. I remember sitting in his office. We were focused on how best to move forward. I used a whiteboard and a mapping technique I had learned in an ACHE seminar on leveraging the power of organizational politics. That tool helped me craft a communication strategy. It also clarified my goal. I now saw I had the opportunity to frame how a culture of patient safety rests on integrity and respect. I was able to position those key messages effectively. My report out honored my own values, and at the same time, I was leading the organization towards greater transparency. When I think back, I feel so satisfied. I handled the situation with grace and courage. It doesn't always work out that way. Sadly, the voices of organizational conscience are not always treated fairly. Becoming a whistleblower has its risks. But I do remember that when I presented my patient safety report to the CEO, I didn't know if there would be personal consequences. I just knew I was leading in an ethical way. It's very likely that you will face more than one ethical dilemma during your career. I'd argue ethics are an underappreciated skill set. And sometimes there is no substitute for a conversation with a trusted colleague about a sensitive situation. Your connection to ACHE can help cultivate a trusted network. So be intentional about making that happen. Be intentional about strong relationships. Then when you need an objective ear, you'll have more options. Please note, my views on ethics do not reflect the perspective of the Minnesota chapter of the American College of Healthcare Executives or our board of directors. Nor does my narrative essay substitute for legal advice if that's what you need. Do use good judgment about sharing organizational specific information. And by the way, none of the situations I've described reflect my experience with my current employer. So I'll wrap up with some simple advice for these not so simple dilemmas. Develop a sense of your own strengths in managing ethical choices and intentionally build your network. You can use the materials available through ACHE on ethics. Check out the tools available at www.ache.org. Just search for ethics and you'll find an ethics self-assessment and a 6-step process for ethical decision-making. Coffee is good for clarity too. I think I'll get myself a cup. Remember, you could reach us at contact@achemn.org. That's contact@achemn.org. Don't forget to follow ACHEMN on LinkedIn as well. And until next time, take care.
Thank you for listening to Coffee with the President. If you're thinking about serving as a mentor or volunteer, please contact us through email at contact@achemn.org, or for more information and how to join, please check out www.achemn.org.